You are most welcome to this talk. Now, I'd like to play you a clip from the recent Senate hearings in the United States about the credible mechanisms of initiating cancer after the COVID vaccines. And it's a clip between a conversation between Dr. Julie Graylow and Senator Ron Johnson. Over to Senator Johnson now to introduce this, and we'll put a few thoughts on as we go through, because like me, I think you may well struggle with credulity as to what you are about to hear. So this is Senator Johnson introducing the topic now.
But, Dr. Graylow, you mentioned that mRNA degrades very rapidly in the body. Is it your understanding and belief that the mRNA in the COVID injections is that type of mRNA?
That is my understanding.
So you don't realize that that's not true mRNA, it's modified. It's modified pseudouridine, is that so it doesn't.
So this is the first point of incredulity, really. This doctor that doesn't seem to know that, she seems to think, as I interpret it, that the mRNA used in the COVID vaccines is the same as natural mRNA, which degrades relatively quickly. She doesn't seem to realise that it has pseudouridine in it to substitute for one of the natural bases. And this greatly increases the length of the life in the body of the messenger RNA, which is injected for the COVID vaccines. Now, how can she not know that? This is Dr. Julie Graylow, medical doctor, fellow of the American College of Physicians, which is a very senior qualification, fellow of the American Society of Clinical Oncology. She holds a bachelor's degree, a medical degree. She was professor of oncology, I think professor of global health as well. Cancer Research Institute, Cancer Researcher Centre researcher. And she has an award for Giants of Cancer Care recognition. And yet she seems to think that the mRNA vaccine is the same as the natural vaccine. How can that be? You know, if you go up to a bricklayer and say, tell you what, mate, what's a brick? Or you say to a plumber, what is solder? You know, you'd expect them to know these things. How can she not know something as basic? I'm really quite puzzled as to how someone with her lifelong medical...
I've known quite a few people in my own industry that don't know what many basic things, parts, tools, whatever are called. And it could potentially be that she does know and is not going to say that she knows.
Credentials, doesn't know that. And she's talking to Senator Johnson, who, as we'll see in a minute, comes out with some really good advanced medical concepts. But Senator Johnson's a businessman, he's not a doctor. He was a chief executive officer of a plastic manufacturing company, a businessman and an accountant. Although, to be fair, he does have experience as a newspaper boy, a golf caddy, a hay baler on a farm, a dishwasher, a night manager in a restaurant, and a machine operator. Although, come to think of it, none of those things would involve complex medical ideas. And yet he seems to know way more about this than this eminent oncologist. Very, very confusing. Let's...
It's amazing what a little bit of research will get you these days.
Let's see what else he's got to say on this.
You're obviously then unaware of some of the studies that show that the spike is in the mRNA is circulating in the body up to 2 years. We haven't studied it longer than that, but it's stayed in this body that long, attaching to the cells. As long as I'm on this track, was it your belief that the injection would stay in the arm? We were told that. He was going to inject in the arm, stay there, create antibodies. The mRNA was going to degrade very quickly. And
I think we all know the answer to this one, don't we? Does the mRNA vaccine stay in the arm? Well, we know that these lipid nanoparticles are systemically distributed to the toes, in the ears and the nose and the eyeball. In fact, everywhere around the body, the brain, more importantly, the myocardium, more importantly, the ovaries and testes, more importantly. We know this. Senator Johnson, the former golf caddy and CEO of a plastics company, knows this. So obviously you'd expect Dr. Julie Graylow, medical doctor, Professor Emeritus of the University of Washington School of Medicine, Medical Oncology and Global Health, to be absolutely all over this. Let's get a reply, shall we?
That's why it was so safe. Was that your understanding that and your belief that the injection stays in the arm?
I think the effects of the injection are total body. So the immune response, the reaction.
No, but I mean the actual. So you're aware the modified mRNA was encapsulated in a lipid nanoparticle, correct? So do you believe that package stayed in the arm as we were told it was going to do?
I can't reliably comment on
So
that.
Sorry. How can she not know it's systemically distributed? How can she not know that?
Talk about how 9 out of 10 doctors agree. They don't agree.
Yeah. Yeah. For years, it was 9 out of 10 doctors. Or 4 out of 5. Because they didn't want to pay fucking 10 of them.
Yeah, it is pretty incredible that, top of the field researchers can know absolutely nothing, and or they're just denying to say what they actually do know.
Yeah, I mean, I would be leaning more towards that direction, because if they are actually doing these tests, if they're developing these things, like it's clearly obvious that they are, then they should be smart enough to tell us how it works, but for some reason they can't.
I mean, no one's saying she's being disingenuous or deliberately obtuse here or deliberately trying to cover some truth that she knows full well. No one's saying that. But she appears genuinely not to know. How can this be, Professor Emeritus, University of Washington School of Medicine, Fellow of the American College of Physicians, Fellow of the American Society of Clinical Oncology? How can she not know that? And Senator Johnson, former golf caddy, hay baler and dishwasher, does know that. Let me know what you think in the comments. How can she not know that? It really is quite incredible that she doesn't know that. Where are we? There we are. Let's listen to the next bit.
So again, you're saying how safe and effective this is, but you don't know how it works.
I do know how it works. It incites an immune reaction, as vaccines do.
Okay, how does it incite that immune reaction? What does it do? What does it actually do?
It brings the immune cells to recognize the COVID protein.
How does it have the? Are you aware of the fact that the lipid nanoparticle delivers its modified mRNA to a cell? That mRNA, that modified mRNA, is injected into the cell, and then it turns the cell into a factory of the spike protein, which is toxic to the body. Are you aware that that's how it creates immunity?
The mRNA in the vaccine does get into cells, and it codes for a protein once it is inside the cell.
So are you aware of the DNA contamination found in these vials, that if the mRNA is being injected in the cell, well, gee, maybe some of this DNA, which is way beyond the level.
Just before we go on to DNA contamination, I think she probably did know that the mRNA gets into the cell, hijacks the cell's own genetic protein-making apparatus, and as Senator Johnson aptly put it there, turns the cell, whether it's a cell in the myocardium or the brain or wherever the heck this protein, this lipid nanoparticle goes, turns it into a factory for this spike protein, which is toxic to the body. I won't say she was all over it, but she did seem to vaguely know that. So we'll give her 1 out of 3 for that, shall we? Let's go on to DNA contamination now. We know this is proof beyond dispute. We've interviewed the original researchers that did it, Dr. David Speaker, for example. The DNA contamination is widely published. So obviously she'll know about that. She'll be all over that because she's very interested in safety. You would think, but let's just see.
mRNA is being injected in the cell. Well, gee, maybe some of this DNA, which is way beyond the levels accepted by the FDA, could also be injected in the cell. Are you aware of that?
I am aware that the mRNA that is injected does not get into our own DNA, and I am not aware of reliable data saying that within the vaccine itself that the DNA levels are
So
high.
you said
Not aware of reliable data that the vaccines contain DNA. I mean, that's just incredible. And she also believes that the genetic material from the RNA doesn't get into the cell, although we believe there's potential mechanisms where that could happen. But the DNA contamination is not a matter of debate, it's a matter of scientific publication, that there was huge amounts of DNA contamination, way above that was allowed, even by the ridiculous liberal limits of the thresholds that were allowed. So again, quite bizarre that she didn't seem to be fully on top of that subject. Really quite strange, really.
that there is no clinical evidence proving these injections cause cancer. What would you require for proof? How would you ever prove that?
I believe that we can put some boundaries around how much of an effect could be happening with respect to causing or accelerating cancer, because we have not seen an overall increase in cancer rates in the vaccinated U.S. population. In order to prove it, we would need a randomized clinical trial where patients were equal in both arms. One would have a placebo or no vaccine, and the other would get the vaccine. And we would need to follow long-term.
So observational studies, clinical observation carries no weight, has no evidence.
I think it's hypothesis generating. I do think there are major differences between people who choose to have vaccines, who are more health engaged, and those who choose not to.
So I was sent apparently a study that's going to be discussed in the June 8th to 9th President's Cancer Panel by Chairman Harvey Risch. And apparently and I don't know what this stands for, the U.S. SEER, SEER.
Surveillance and Epidemiologic Evidence Registry.
SEER is actually easy to say. This is what Dr. Risch wanted me to talk about this. Leukemias are generally the shortest latency cancers and thus would be the first empirical signs to see pandemic-related effects. U.S. SEER cancer incidence data for 2023 were recently released. It is clear that for 2023, there are substantial incidence increases above the trend line for all, both sexes, males, both sexes, for every cohort. They have instant increases above the trend line. These charts appear to be the first U.S. data showing that an association between COVID-19 infection and vaccination and leukemias.
It just boggles my mind that, here we are 6 years later and we're still doing the clinical trials.
Well, I mean, they had to be run at some point. Couldn't have been run before it was formulated, right? I mean, yeah, that's why it was crazy to me that people were like, no, it's a normal vaccine, it's a normal vaccine. And I'm like, I don't know where you got that info, because it's not. Everything that I've looked into about it says it's not, and it's the first of its kind, truly, which means they have no idea at all what it will do in our body. I mean, they might have some idea, but the amount of repercussions, nobody truly knows. The first edition of anything is the worst.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like gamers out there, they remember the original Xbox. First generation everything is plagued with problems.
Mm-hmm.
May be possible and should be confirmed by additional data as they become available. Again, I think it's a pretty balanced statement, but we have Dr. El-Deary, who has just laid out plausible mechanisms, concerned. We have Dr. Dalglish, who saw it in his clinic, was highly concerned. Again, I hear from a lot of doctors also see it clinically, observationally. Dr. El-Deary talked about the cancers seeing, at the site, in the neck. I mean, wouldn't that be indications of causation? Is that something that we ought to research?
Would you like to know more?